Good morning, guys. For this quick summary, we're going to be going over cells and the most important information that you need from cells. So, one of the main things that you're going to need is to know the important organelles that we talked about at the beginning of the year. I've listed them here: the nucleus, the ribosome, cytoplasm, mitochondria, vacuoles, chloroplast, cell membrane, and cell wall. If you can understand the processes that are involved with these structures as well as what these structures do, you'll have a very easy time with the test overall. So, starting off with the nucleus, we know that the nucleus is the control center for the cell, and it's also where DNA is stored in eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells obviously still have DNA, however, it's not stored in a nucleus, as that is what the term prokaryote stands for. Um, we know that transcription happens in the nucleus, and so we can actually add that to our list of things that we can worry about. So I'm actually going to add that. I need the pencil tool. I apologize. So we need. I'm learning this new software. I'm apologizing. Description. Okay, I gotta get better with that. So transcription, we also have after transcription, we're going to go to the next piece. Remember, transcription is where a piece of DNA is converted into mRNA prior to leaving the nucleus where it can be translated. The main reason why transcription has to happen inside the nucleus is because the nucleus stores the DNA, and DNA is bound to this area except during mitosis, where the nucleus dissolves and the DNA can kind of spread out. But otherwise, the DNA has to stay in that area, um, which means that in order for the genetic information to be used, remember, DNA stores the information for making proteins. If the DNA wants to be used, it has to leave the nucleus. And so the only way to help the DNA leave is to make a copy of it, which is what that RNA represents. Which, heading to the next piece, the ribosome. So the ribosome does translation, which is reading that mRNA and converting it into amino acids that can be chained together to form proteins. So this action here is called translation, and that is what the ribosomes do. Okay, so we got transcription, we have translation. Um, So the ribosomes are actually going to be also made from a form of RNA. It's going to be called rRNA. rRNA and some proteins form the ribosomes. And they're made in another organelle, but we don't have to worry about that for now. Um, and this all happens inside the cytoplasm. Now, the cytoplasm is important for many different processes. We know that it's also the site of translation because the ribosomes do this inside the cytoplasm. But if you go back to when we talked about cellular respiration, glycolysis, the first step of cell respiration, also happens in the cytoplasm. So a lot of important chemical reactions occur inside the fluid of the cell, which is called the cytoplasm, as opposed to inside an organelle themselves. Okay, so cytoplasm is a very big piece of the cell, as a lot of the bigger reactions, or I'm sorry, the smaller reactions actually, are going to take place inside of the cytoplasm. So we have glycolysis, and then we also have translation. Both of those happening inside the cytoplasm. Okay. Then the mitochondria we know is the site of the Krebs cycle as well as aerobic cellular respiration, which is cellular respiration that requires oxygen. Remember, the anaerobic, not requiring oxygen, happens in the cytoplasm. The aerobic happens in the mitochondria. And that's how we produce ATP, which is used for all of our metabolic reactions. Metabolic reactions being any chemical reaction that happens in the body. And all of these usually require energy. Finally, we have the vacuole. The vacuole is a storage area. Think of it like the stomach of a cell. It stores food, water, and waste, depending on what the cell needs. Chloroplast is the site of photosynthesis in plants. Animal cells do not have chloroplast because we need to eat. Instead, we will have lysosomes, which are digestive organelles, which will literally be the stomach for the cell. However, chloroplasts, because they don't need to eat, don't have lysosomes, they have chloroplasts, and these will convert sunlight energy into chemical energy, which is eventually going to be turned into glucose, which is sugar. Okay. So if you don't recall that process, you don't need the specifics of that process. If you want to come to extra help to remember the processes of cell respiration and photosynthesis, that you can do that. You might be on the next test. It's not going to be on this one, but it is important to know. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. And the next one is the cell membrane. The cell membrane is very important on this test. It's going to be all over the place. It controls the flow of nutrients of compounds in and out of the cell. And the important piece is how that happens is diffusion. Diffusion is going to absolutely be on this test. So diffusion is the passive transport of materials in and out of the cell from high concentration to low concentration. If it goes against this high concentration to low concentration flow, that is called active transport, and that needs energy. So this flow from high to low is considered a concentration gradient. It's moving with the gradient if it's going from high to low, and against the gradient if it's going from low to high. Because some things are allowed through the cell membrane and some things are not allowed through, it is considered semi-permeable, which means only some things can pass. Think of it like a filter. And then it has receptors on the outside that allow hormones to attach to it so that chemical signals can be passed on. These are also the same attachment points that bacteria and antigens would bond to. And the last piece that you need to know about the cell membrane is osmosis, which is the diffusion of water through the cell membrane. And this process, is going to be based off the amount of substrate on either side, usually going to be salt. That's going to be the main thing. Remember, where the salt is where the water is going to go. So if there's a higher concentration of salt on the inside of the cell, the water is going to go inside the cell. If there's a higher concentration of salt outside the cell, then the water is going to flow outside of the cell. If it's equal on both sides, then there will be a net zero movement. Even though the water will continue to flow on both sides, it won't actually change the cell. In an animal cell, if all the water flows out, it will shrivel up. If all the water flows in, it'll burst, called lysing. So an animal cell wants to be in that balanced water so that nothing actually occurs to it. Whereas a plant cell wants to have that hypertonic water so that it can actually expand, and then its cell wall, which is the next piece, will act as a barrier around it to maintain its size. So plant cells have a cell wall, but they also have a cell membrane. It goes around their cell membrane and kind of protects the cell. And those are the main organelles. Feel free to review them from there. Bye-bye.